Hey everybody. So last week I released a trade guide, and a comment to that video made me realize I actually never talked about trade power abroad and overextension in my entire guide. The problem is that while it's actually a relatively easy subject to understand, it is pretty critical to understand what is going on with your trade and how it fluctuates as you play the game, so I kind of do need to talk about it. So I'm making this as sort of a supplement to that guide, and hopefully it can be made into a YouTube short, but if necessary, it can just be a really short, long-form video. But, as you can see here, I am playing Venice, and it is not in Iron Man mode, so I can use the console just to make my life slightly easier. Now, because I am Venice, that means Venice is, of course, my main trading port. And I've used the console to integrate both Genoa and Florence to give myself the most amount of trade power in the Genoa node. And this is based entirely off of provinces. I've also integrated Jared down here in Tunis, which gives me just enough provincial trade power there to allow propagating trade from my Genoa node to give me decent amount of trade power there, even though I barely have a presence. And I did send my light ships over to Alexandria to pull trade out of that node, giving myself a presence there as well. So what does overextension do to my income? Well, the easiest way to show that is simply to annex Hungary. This will spike my overextension, and if you read through the modifiers here, one of them is a malice to trade power abroad. It is 1-to-1, so because I have 140% overextension, I therefore have negative 140% trade power abroad. So the question is what makes something abroad? Well, it's based off of your trade nodes, and there's two ways to make your trade node domestic, and everything else is abroad. The first one is to be the main trading port. Period. Whatever you set to be your main trading port, no matter how much you have, will be considered domestic, so you get to keep that one. The other one is any trade node where you have the most provincial trade power of any nation. You do not have to have 50% or more. You just simply have to have more than anybody else. So it's a plurality, not a majority. Keep that in mind. Now down here in Tunis, as you can see, I'm no longer up here. The reason why is because I obviously didn't have the most provincial trade power. So I'm down here with 0.2 now because it's being reduced by 150%. And then over in Alexandria, since I had none, obviously I'm not going to be there, but yeah, I have 1.6 from all of my light ships. So now that we've covered the mechanics of how it works, how does this fit into your playstyle? How does this change how you play the game? Well, it's actually kind of simple. You see, most people when they start the game are going to be focused entirely on their main node, and then they will be expanding into a node next to it, either 1 or 2 or potentially 3. Well, in that circumstance, you're not really losing anything because you don't lose your main node, and then once you control the next nodes, then it really doesn't matter. But there are circumstances when you're going to be mainly focused on not owning the land. A good example is, say, Portugal sending trade ships over to the Spice Islands in Indonesia and pulling the trade power there. They don't necessarily have to conquer it, they're just pulling it with trade ships. Then you do need to worry about overextension, and if you're constantly limiting yourself and maxing out at near 100% overextension, your light ships really don't do anything. So simply keeping that in mind can keep your massive income from trade flowing. And since coring can take years, you might be going years without that income. And if you do some things that I do sometimes, such as attack somebody with cores on that land, it's even longer. So it's simply being aware of how it works so that you can adjust your economy as needed so you don't lose out on a bunch of money. And then, of course, in the late game, when you have massive swaths of territory controlling all of these nodes, it really doesn't matter at that point because, yeah, you're making plenty of trade income and other income as you need to. So just keep that in mind and use provincial trade power mercantilism appropriately to make certain that you don't lose your trade income just because you conquered land in a war, or use vassal expansion or whatever you have to do just to make sure your economy doesn't tank because you win. So that's really annoying to lose out on a bunch of money because you won. But that's all you guys need to know. If you guys like this video, like and subscribe. I will be continuing to make guides, but have a great day.